Hey guys, Asher coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends with another champion guide, this time on Valla. Valla, who was, I want to say, an Amazon Prime champion way back in the day. A lot of requests coming in for Valla. We have Boarhead, we have Trey Kinsey, we have Ratko Bronzovic, we have Tipfer Tool, and then we have Llama, we have Trey Kinsey, we have Boarhead again, and Trey coming in, looking for Valla as a nuker. Well, we'll definitely see what kind of damage she can deliver in today's guide. Let's go ahead and jump into it, guys. All right, guys, so Valla is a pretty old school. She's an expansion champion, but it was years and years ago. I want to say maybe 2020 when she was introduced to the game. And she is a Barbarian Spirit Affinity, an epic champion, and she was pretty unique. She has been power crept a little bit, but what value can you extract from Valla nowadays here in 2024, midway through the time of this recording? Is she worth investing in at all? Today, obviously, that is the answer that we hope to provide to you guys. So what does she do? First of all, what does she look like? She looks pretty cool. Got the barbarian kind of warrior princess vibe going on a little bit, with all apologies to Xena. Her base defense is notably very high for an epic champion at 1409. Definitely one of the higher defenses out there. There's not many epics, even the tanky ones that have over 1400 on the base. She has 1600, almost 17,000, excuse me, on the HP as well. So decent survivability on the A1. Piercing Blade is a 2-time hitter, increases the damage inflicted by 15% if the target is under a shield buff. 4 freaking levels of damage. You really hate to see it on the A1. On the A2, Crush the Wall. 5 more books here, guys. Little bit of a book trap, this champion, I'm not gonna lie. Removes all shield buffs from all enemies, then attacks all enemies. Has a 50% chance when booked of placing the big version of decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. So what do we like about this ability? Obviously, removing shields, so that's nice. Does require accuracy, but so does the decreased defense. So we're gonna have to absolutely prioritize accuracy on this champion. But when we look at it, it's a 50% chance to place the decreased defense. However, there's not many decreased defense champions in the game that have an AoE decreased defense big version on a 3-turn cooldown. So I would say the scarcity of this ability does somewhat mitigate the crappy cooldown, or I should say the crappy land rate, right? The cooldown's fine. So there's some give and there's some take here, but namely in content that is restrictive, like Curse City, like special rooms in Doom Tower, even Faction Wars is inherently restrictive because you can only use barbarians, right? You might not have a good AoE decreased defense option. In those areas, she actually really shines with this ability, right? Sometimes it's hard to get or impossible to get. There have been other champions like Ragash, for example, that have been added to the game subsequently that have the AoE decreased defense at 100%, but he's a legendary. Anyway, Fortified Core is her A3 ability. It places a shield on this champion for 3 turns, 20% of their max HP, also places an increased defense on this champion for 3 turns, and fills this champion's turn meter by 50%. So what do we feel about this one? Well, she gets the shield. That's pretty nice. Granted, we're not really scaling her HP otherwise, so it's a little bit awkward being that her damage is based on defense and her multipliers are actually pretty decent. So, but hey, a shield is a shield, right? Even if her HP isn't sky high, we can still maybe pick up like 5 to 10k worth of shield depending on how we have her built. And then the increased defense is great. That's going to be, extra damage off of her A1 and her A2 and more survivability, obviously, for her herself. The turn meter fill is great. It's almost like a half of an extra turn. Ideally, if we were coming out with a champion nowadays here, 4 or 5 years later when she was introduced, I would really want to see this be an extra turn ability versus a filled turn meter by 50%. I feel like that's become kind of the standard, even on epics, for a champion like this. Either way, it's not a bad ability. Decrease the damage received by this champion by 15% while they're under a shield buff, so further damage mitigation, which parlays with the 3-turn shield from the A3 ability. Aura, increase ally resistance in arena battles by 45. You could absolutely use her on an unorthodox, off-meta, high-resist team inside the arena, but you're probably going to get better options as a resist or a lead. You probably either already have them or you'll be getting them soon, such as Razin Scarhide with a 90 resist in the arena, one of the better ones, or Lydia after you've cleared Faction Wars with 100 resist. So I can't really say that I love the aura at all. Actually, I think it's a pretty weak aura, because if it was all battles, it'd be great, but it's not, unfortunately. So what do we think overall in this champion? Well, hey, Hades.com grades her a 3 out of 5. I tend to agree with this ranking, guys. I might even go maybe, I don't know. I think 3 is fair. I think 3 is fair. She's a C plus B minus type champion. If I was to argue that, I'd just be trying to get cute and argue within the margins, right? Where is she used? Well, like I said earlier, she's kind of just a faction war, wave content, restrictive content type of champion, right? She's not that great in any particular area of the game. However, she's not that awful, really, at any particular area of the game as well. She's a tanky secondary damage dealer who brings, you know, some debuffs to the table as well. That's like her claim to fame. That's what she's doing. She's a 1.55 multiplier, defense based on her A1 ability. It's an average damage ranking there. 2-time hitter though, so it's not bad. On the AoE, Crush the Wall, it's an AoE 3.8 defensive multiplier that hits, you know, maybe a little bit harder than a Grush the Mangler, around the same type as a Hoskarul. I'm trying to compare her to other defense-based damage dealers, supports, or controls who are epic in the game, right? But keep in mind, where she does outshine them in terms of damage is obviously bringing the debuffs, but moreover, bringing her own increased defense as well, which is helpful to get even more damage out of her. So I think we should be building her for damage in most situations. I could absolutely see maybe an unorthodox build using a stun set for her in content that you just can't beat, whether it's a secret room on Doom Tower Hard or whether it's a Cursed City area. You just need to stun lock everybody. But I think outside that situation, I'd probably be building her with, you know, some damage in mind, right? Because she is debuffing damage tanky, right? In terms of masteries, hell, Hades.com recommends the following here. I'm sure the ones that I have on her, I haven't looked at her masteries in years, what I have on my account. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we have her built. I did redo the build for this video, but I thought the masteries looked fine from the way that I had her built originally. So Valla, who should book out Valla, right? Who can actually justify putting resources into her? If you're really hurting for a faction war debuffer, right, and you're at the latter stages and maybe you just need to clear barbarian faction wars, maybe she would justify books there. If you're already a spender or a whale in the late game and you don't care about epic skill tomes, or if you're just in the late game, even if you're free to play, sometimes the epic skill tomes can stack up. Yeah, sure, use her for Cursed City, and in that case, book her. But if you're pulling her as one of your first epics, or you're just working on dungeon progression, I'd probably err on the side of trying to get some value out of her without booking her first, without even going for masteries first. Kind of one of those champions, right? And then make the decision. We just did a guy yesterday on Samar Gem Cursed. It's kind of like the same thing in a legendary, right? I wouldn't advocate booking or doing masteries right away. We did go with Cruelty on a Blessing here. You can see we went with Savage and Perception. You could put her in a, I guess, Guardian gear to be a little bit more survivability in terms of the emphasis on your team. But I like Perception. We need the accuracy anyway. I like Savage gear. In the early game, you could go with Lifesteal gear on her as well, because she will be doing enough damage to keep herself alive and surviving. But she does bring the shield anyway. Her HP right around 50k, so the shield isn't going to be that big, but it's a shield nonetheless. 5k on defense for the late game is what you should be aiming for on a champion like this to get some damage out of her. I have her way too much crit rate. I could definitely tend to exchange 29 there to the crit damage and get a little bit closer to 200 on the crit damage. That's because we have crit rate on the gauntlets here. I don't think she's worth putting in your best nuking gear unless you just want to mule it back onto the nuker that you had on previously, right? So crit rate on the gauntlets, defense percentage on the chest, and speed on the boots. We're going to be aiming for usually accuracy on the banner, but I was really lacking speed on this build, so I went with the best speed banner that I had available, and resistance is going to be fine anyway. Resisting not a lot with 320 or so resist, but enough to resist some wave content, which is how we're going to be using this champion anyway. But I would say the majority of you guys are going to either go accuracy or defense on the banner. Crit damage on the amulet and defense on the ring. Let's see if we can get a nice juicy defense ascension stat here. We get the HP, and honestly, we'll take it, right? So we talked about where we can use her. We talked about the build. We talked about blessings. We talked about masteries. Let's go ahead and give her a shot. What do you say, guys? I know somebody in the comments was asking for an arena team around her. She's not my favorite arena champion, even on a go second team. I just think that you could probably do a little bit better, you know? That being said, let's try her out. Do I have like a free-to-play friendly second team? Not really. Let me make one. Be right back. All right, guys, let's go ahead against a speedy team here inside the arena. I put this kind of defensive, tanky, stall type team. I have Vogoth in a bolster set. I have Iron Brago on the team as well. It's a pretty nice go second team. I have UDK in the aura lead for the increased defense. We're going against a 2-turn Stone Skin on Hefrak without a reviver, so we have to be very careful on this squad, but we should be okay. Everybody's super tanky, and we have the heals built in as well. Let's go ahead and get an increased defense on everybody, thanks to Iron Brago. No one to target for the stun there. We'll go in with the AoE nuke. Yeah, even if Hefrak goes, I don't think he'll be able to kill anybody we'll see right now, right? Yeah, he's not going to be able to do enough damage there. Certainly Vogoth is super underrated as well as an epic for the arena. I mean, he's just really solid. So now we basically have to wait to get back around to the AoE again of Valla. Iron Brago does have an AoE as well that we can use right here. Let's see. Not bad damage, but you can see that we're getting to the downside of a team like this, is even with the increased defense, especially in this meta right now. I mean, it's there's a lot of nukers. I mean, excuse me, there's a lot of tanky champions, sorry. You're gonna need a lot of good nukers, right? And this is like a slow burn type team, right? Unless you have, that's why a champion like Ragash, you know, granted he's a tough to get legendary, but he's gonna be a little bit more effective, and you can see the team basically not able to survive. Granted, we win against like a pretty good team here, but you know me, guys, I show you the wins and I show you the losses, but you know, we wipe there, and ideally we'd be able to withstand a team like that. Of course, we could go in, further optimize, and add better champions on our side, but I guess just generally speaking, all these teams, like we have a shot against this team, but they're kind of doing what we're doing here and just be boring for 10 minutes. But I guess you could use her in arena progression type content as a tanky debuffer for your team, right? Like that's a role anywhere that you're going to use her for the most part. Let's just go to Curse City, guys. I actually did use her on one of my main teams for S8 and on Centranos Hard, and it was on this team. We do have Ragash, Sandlash Survivor. We have Valkyrie, so we have some good champions alongside her, but you'll notice she's actually going to do really nice damage here, even compared to, you know, the likes of a Ragash and a Valkyrie and everybody on this team, even Iron Brago, with the exception of Sandlashed. Everybody's built for some damage, right? Everybody's built for some damage. And she did pretty nice damage on her AoE right out the gate there. You can see compared to some of these other defense-based damage dealers. So I thought that this run, I was surprised the first time that I did it. I was like, wow, Valla, not only is she helping debuff the enemy team, granted we do have Ragash as well. If we didn't have Ragash, that would be all her role. But she's also has great survivability on a team with no revivers, right? If we can keep everybody alive, let's see. I thought this was nice and easy full auto, but now I'm having a second thoughts here. Ray has a almost full turn meter. Can somebody go in there and CC Ray, please? I think Ray's gonna smoke Ragash. No. How about the second Ray? No, she is clinging on to what we lost somebody there. Did we lose Valla? We can't lose no, we didn't lose Valla. All right, we lost Sandlashed. Whatever. Let's see if we can do it without you, Sandlash Survivor. We'll postpone Sandlash Survivor's guide that we're going to do here on the channel. All right, anyway. Going into this next wave, and we're actually hurting right now on this team. I don't know if we can pull it off. We're going against the Fiery Rage of Mortu Macabre, and it looks like he has his Peril ability activated here. Unless it was turn meter filled that I didn't see, but I think he's going to Peril somebody. I don't know who it's going to be, but can we get in? Oh! no dice. No soup for you, as nobody says anymore. Valla able to withstand the peril. That was impressive. I don't know about you guys, but I really thought that was super impressive. I thought too she was toast when Mortu Macabre targeted her. I'm like, okay, well, I guess she's going to strike out everywhere. But nah, she's going to come through for you guys. Let's see if we can kill Mortu here. No A1 cycling. We're just going to go in for it. Unfortunately, Iron Brago uses his increased defense ability as the last move on the second wave. So hopefully Valla has her AoE. She goes in with a fortified core. You can actually turn the fortified core off in some situations. For example, a team like this, right? We don't need the shield. We have Valkyrie. And we don't need, and the turn meter fill is, you know, it's nice. The turn meter fill is nice because it can help reduce the cooldown of the A2 ability, right? Even though it doesn't get you a full extra turn, it can still act in a similar way for you. So, third wave, kind of wrapping up here a little bit. What do you guys think of Valla? Do you think I was too hard on her with my C grading overall? I remember the first time, I had her for a while, but the first time I really started to appreciate what she brought to the table, I think it was actually Faction Wars before I had Ragash, right? And I had already cleared Faction Wars, I already had Lydia, but putting her in instead of like War Maiden or whatever as my debuffer from the Barbarian faction, putting her in there actually, or alongside War Maiden even, really just helped maximize my damage with more consistency around the decreased defense, and she can deal some damage herself. She might, let's see, I don't know if she's going to be able to finish this, this show here. We take down one Bellinor, we have a Lysandra, a Lana Theral, and two Delianas to take care of here, and only two ladies left standing. So we go in Fortified Core. I like the 50% turn meter fill. I like it. I don't like wasting a turn on it. All right, let's see how she does here. She goes in, gets a couple nice hits. She's actually doing really well. She's going to counterattack and kill this Deliana here. And then I think we've got this, guys. We have a crush the wall, goes down, takes out the other Deliana, lands the decreased defense on Lana Theral and on Lysandra. We're going to be able to get the job done, benefiting a lot from the decently hard-hitting A1 and the counterattack from Valkyrie as well. That would be a nice addition, too, for a buff. Her A1 hits decently hard. If they added to the A1 ability, you know, maybe a tiny bit of, or maybe a counterattack to the A3, that'd be a great way to buff her. Add a counterattack to her A3 so she's doing more damage off of that A1 ability, which, as we saw, hits decently hard. Now, I mean, it doesn't mean much here, her out-damaging everybody on this squad when Ragash died a little bit earlier, and so did Iron Brago. However, I did run this before the video as well, and she still out-damaged everybody, and nobody died on that run. So she had the damage lead, just not by this much. I think Ragash had number 2. So guys, there it is. Valla, overall, I think she's a pretty serviceable champion who can help a lot of players out, even if you don't choose to fully max her, investing your books and your masteries in her. Let me know where you use Valla, and if you agree with my guide in the comments below, and keep the guide requests coming for future champions and future videos here on the channel. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.